Mom used to drag home 2 greasy gas station sausages like they were treasure. Then she'd make my sister, Bella, and me draw straws to decide who got them. Every single time, I pulled the short straw. And like clockwork, Bella pulled the long one. So Bella got both sausages. If I dared to complain, Mom would huff, roll her eyes, and snap, "I bought this kid so you wouldn't whine." I'm being fair. Rules are rules, Harper. Ain't my fault your luck sucks. That was our life. A little game that always landed the same way. It went on for years, until my birthday. Bella wanted to go to Six Flags. Mom, predictably, decided we should draw straws to see who got to pick the destination. Like my birthday was some neutral holiday we had to compete for. Something in me finally broke. I waited until they weren't looking, took 2 short straws, and glued them together so it would look like I'd pulled the long one. My hands shook while I did it. Not because I thought it was wrong, because I knew what would happen if I got caught. I stepped up with my fake long straw like I'd won something I'd never been allowed to win. Mom's face changed in an instant. Her hand flew up and cracked across my cheek. "Cheating little," she screamed, her voice sharp and ugly, like she'd been waiting her whole life to have an excuse. She grabbed Bella's wrist and stormed out of the trailer like I wasn't even there, like my birthday wasn't even on the calendar. I crumpled to the linoleum, dizzy, clutching the straw so hard it bent in my fist. It snapped. The edge jabbed me as I fell, and a hot sting flared along my neck. I pressed my fingers there, confused at first, then panic washed over me when they came away slick. My ears started ringing. My vision blurred at the edges like someone was turning down the lights. I tried to call out. I tried to stand. My body wouldn't listen. The ceiling swam above me. The room stretched, then pulled away. And then, with a horrible calm, I realized I wasn't sinking anymore. I was drifting. Like I was lighter than air. Footsteps thudded outside my bedroom door. When I didn't open it, the doorknob rattled hard. "Sulking won't save you," Mom shouted through the wood. "You pulled the short straw. Own it. God, you're growing up to be such a brat with this attitude." Bella's voice whined behind her. "Mom, come on. The park's gonna get crowded." Mom gave up on the door. I heard the car keys snatched off the counter. "We'll be out late," she called. "Don't expect dinner. There's a cold drumstick on the table. Eat that. And don't say I'm not fair, your sister hasn't had it either. This time I'm not even making you draw for it. Consider it a handout." A handout. The drumstick was stale, yesterday's leftovers. Yesterday, she'd made us draw for it too. I got the short straw. Of course I did. When I reached for it, she'd slapped my hand so hard it swelled. "Did you forget the rules?" she'd screeched. "Short straw loses. That chicken is Bella's. Touch it again and you'll regret it." But today, she was letting me have scraps. Except she forgot one detail. I wasn't part of their world anymore. I reached for the drumstick and my hand passed straight through it. I stood there, staring, trying again, like if I concentrated hard enough I could force reality to take me back. A mangy stray cat with a torn ear squeezed through the open window, hopped onto the table, snatched the drumstick, and hissed like it was laughing at me before it bolted back out. I couldn't stop it. I couldn't stop anything. I slid down the wall into the corner of my room and did the only thing I could do, I cried. Except even that felt wrong. No tears. No heat in my face. Just the ache of it. Time stopped making sense. Eventually the front door banged open. Dad, Mom, and Bella came back loud and sweaty and glowing with a happiness that made my stomach twist out of habit, like my body still remembered what jealousy felt like. "Mom, that giant stuffed unicorn is so fluffy," Bella sang. "Can we get ice cream now?" Mom kissed her forehead, leaving a lipstick smudge. "Mommy's tapped out for cash, sweetie." Bella shoved her away. "Don't kiss me. We didn't draw straws for a kiss. What if Harper sees? She'll whine about it being unfair again." They laughed. "Besides," Bella added with the casual cruelty of someone who's never been told no, "she's probably rotting in her room crying right now. It is her birthday, I guess." Mom glanced at the table. The chicken bone was gone, thanks to the cat, and she let out a dry little cackle. If she could pull a long straw for once, I'd kiss her too, she said like it was the funniest thing in the world. But that girl's cursed. And look, she ate. She's just being petty, hiding in there. Then Mom started banging pots and pans. In a mocking, sing-song voice toward my door, she called, "Hey, Your Highness. You sure you don't want to come out and draw straws? I'm making mac and cheese with bacon. Don't come crying later that you didn't get any." Dad dropped onto the couch with a beer and grunted, "Why bother if she ain't playing? Just make what Bella likes. Let her sulk." I stood beside him, screaming without sound, because what difference did drawing make? For 10 years, our dinner table had been a shrine to Bella's taste buds. I lived on plain rice and whatever didn't matter enough to fight over. I was always hungry, always careful, always trying not to take up space. But hey, at least they didn't let me starve, right? Until the day they did. Mom set the food out like it was a celebration. The three of them ate, laughing, mouths full, while my birthday passed like a commercial break. I drifted closer and noticed a white box on a chair. A cake box. My chest tightened with a stupid, hopeful reflex. I turned to the cat, now back on the windowsill like it owned the place. "See that?" I whispered. "They didn't forget my birthday. They got a cake." The cat blinked at me with eyes that felt almost human, like it wanted to say, "You still don't get it." Mom handed the cake box to Bella. "You wanted to try that bakery, right? I got it just for you," she said. "But take it to your room. If Harper sees it, she'll throw a tantrum." That was when the last little string inside me snapped. Not because of the cake. Because of the certainty. Even if I played their game perfectly, I never had a chance. "Have you ever tasted cake?" I asked the cat, my voice breaking on the words. The cat moved in a blur. It leapt off the sill, swiped the cake box right out of Bella's hands, and tore it open with claws and teeth like it had been waiting for revenge. Bella shrieked as she tried to snatch it back and got scratched for her trouble. She burst into dramatic tears, the kind that always worked. Mom grabbed a vase and hurled it toward my door. The glass exploded against the wood. "Harper!" she screamed. "You did that on purpose? Why didn't you close the window?" When I didn't answer, her rage kept climbing, searching for somewhere to land. Dad grabbed her arm. "Leave it. Let's get Bella checked out." They didn't come back until late. They banged on my door again. Threatened to break the lock. Cursed at me. Then the neighbor, old Mrs. Gable, started pounding on the wall, yelling about the noise, and my parents finally backed off, grumbling as they went to bed. The next morning, Mom came home with a new princess dress for Bella. Bella twirled in the living room, preening like a peacock. "I cried when I got my shot," she announced proudly. So Mom felt bad. We went shopping and had steak for lunch. Then she tilted her head toward my door like she was talking to a bug. "You've never had steak, have you, Harper? Sucks to be you." That was when Bella stepped into the dark puddle seeping from under my door. She slipped. Hit the floor hard. Her scream brought both parents running. Dad froze when he saw it. His face drained. "What the hell? Where is this coming from?" He stared at the stain creeping under my door like it had finally become real. "It's coming from Harper's room," he said, voice tight. Bella gagged and started wailing about the smell. Mom exploded. She kicked my door so hard the frame shook. "Harper! Get your butt out here. You hurt your sister and now you're hiding? Open this door." She kicked again. And again. Each impact made the lock rattle. And somewhere, deep down, I felt a sick, distant echo, like my body was on the other side of that door, taking the punishment in silence the way it always had. Eventually, she dragged Bella to the bathroom, cursing the whole way. While they were distracted, I drifted downstairs and saw something that made me go cold. The drawing kit. The little box they kept the straws in had fallen off the shelf during the commotion. The lid had cracked open. I floated closer and looked inside. There weren't any long straws. Not one. Every single straw in that box was cut short. My knees would have buckled if I still had knees. So that was it. They never loved me. Not even enough to feel guilty, honestly. The whole game wasn't fairness. It was a costume they put on their conscience. A way to hurt me while pretending the universe was to blame. After Bella's second trip to get checked out, Mom and Dad started treating me like a ghost before they even knew I was one. They stopped setting a plate for me. Stopped calling my name. They just focused on Bella, soothing her, spoiling her, acting like she was the only child who mattered. Days passed. The air in the trailer changed. Heavy. Sour. Impossible to ignore. Mrs. Gable showed up at the front door looking pale. "Brenda," she said, pressing a hand to her mouth, "my apartment smells like something died in the vents. And I haven't seen Harper in a week." Mom marched to my door and pounded on it like she was offended the world had noticed. "Harper. Did you do something in there? Are you trying to embarrass me?" Silence. Mrs. Gable's face tightened. "Maybe we should call someone. A kid can't lock herself in a room for a week." I watched Mom, watched for a flicker of worry, fear, anything human. I got disgust. "She's fine," Mom snapped. "She's been acting crazy. And she put Bella in the hospital twice with her bad vibes. Bella is the victim here." When Mrs. Gable left, Mom scraped leftovers into the trash with a sharp, angry motion. "You want to starve? Fine. Starve," she muttered. "I'm calling the school tomorrow. I'll withdraw you. Keeping you home saves me lunch money anyway." Even my parents started gagging eventually, spraying air freshener like it could erase reality. They convinced themselves the smell was just me being filthy, being spiteful, refusing to behave. Mrs. Gable couldn't take it anymore. She called the police. When Mom saw the blue lights outside, she went ballistic. "Who called the cops?" she shrieked. "This is harassment." An officer stepped into the hallway and immediately paused, nose wrinkling. "We got a report of a child possibly being held against her will," he said, voice steady. "Ma'am, we need to see the child." "She's locking herself in," Mom insisted. "She's unstable. She's disgusting." The officer didn't argue. The smell in the air did the talking. "Open the door," he said, firmer now. "Ma'am. Now." Dad tried a softer tone, like he could charm his way out of it. "Let Harper explain herself so we can stop this whole misunderstanding." But the officer was done waiting. He moved to the door and forced it open near the lock. When it swung wide, the hallway seemed to go silent. Even the adults, so loud, so sure of themselves, stumbled back from what poured out of that room. The officer covered his mouth and stepped away, eyes wide, radio already in his hand. And for the very first time in my life, they all finally saw what their game had cost. I thought that would be the moment they broke. I thought it would be the moment a mother fell to her knees. A father said my name like it mattered. A sister stopped being a princess and became a kid who finally understood. But my family didn't break the way normal people break. They froze. Like their brains couldn't accept what their eyes were reporting. And maybe that was my fault for expecting humanity from people who'd been training themselves for years not to have any. Because this game didn't start with Bella. It started when I was 7, and my grandma came to stay with us for a while. I remember the fight like it's burned into the walls. Grandma stood in our cramped kitchen, hands shaking as she pointed at the little straw box on the counter. "This is sick," she said. "If you love that baby, then love her. If you don't, just say it. Don't hide behind some fake fairness." Mom smiled like Grandma was being dramatic. "How I love my kids is none of your business," she said, calm and smug. "I love both of them. But sometimes I lean one way. I can't help it." Grandma's eyes went glossy with rage. "Then stop pretending," she hissed. "Stop punishing Harper for existing." Mom's smile sharpened. "That's why I bought the kit," she said, tapping the box like it was holy. "So nobody can accuse me of being unfair. They want something? They draw. I don't interfere. And if Harper never pulls the long straw, well, that's luck." Grandma opened her mouth to scream again. And then she just went down. Not dramatic. Not movie style. One second she was standing, furious and alive, and the next she was on the floor, still as a drop doll. Mom stared at her like she'd spilled a drink. Dad called 911 too late. And at Grandma's funeral, people kept telling Mom how devoted she was. How good she'd been to her mother-in-law. Mom accepted the pity like she'd earned it. I accepted it too because I was 7, and I still believed adults when they wore a nice face. After Grandma died, the straw box became law. We didn't just draw for food. We drew for everything. 2 eggs in the fridge? Draw. A hug? Draw. A kiss on the forehead? Draw. Even when I was burning up with a fever, shivering under a thin blanket, begging Mom to hold me for just 1 minute, she still shoved that box in my face. Rules are rules, she'd say. I'd draw. Short straw. Then she'd scoop Bella up like it was muscle memory and coo, "Aw, poor baby." And I'd lie there, listening, learning what love sounded like when it wasn't meant for me. So when the officer forced that door open and the air changed and everyone recoiled, when Dad looked like he might throw up and Mom's hand flew to her mouth, I didn't feel satisfied. I felt embarrassed. Like I'd inconvenienced them. Like I'd made a mess on the floor and Mom was going to be mad about it. That was my first thought. Not, "I'm gone." Not, "They finally know." Just, "I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't mean to make it gross." The neighbor, Mrs. Gable, was the first one who made a sound that wasn't anger. She made this broken little noise in her throat. And then she started crying. Real crying. Not Bella tears. Not my mom's performance tears. Her shoulders shook like my life was something she could actually feel. She pushed past the officers, took one look at my room, and her face twisted like she wanted to scream at the ceiling. "Oh, honey," she whispered. That was when my chest did something weird. Like it remembered what warmth felt like. My parents didn't cry. Not then. Not even when Mrs. Gable pointed out my bed, too small, too bare, shoved against the wall like it was punishment. Not when she yanked open my dresser and held up clothes that didn't fit. "She's 13, Mrs. Gable snapped at my mom. "Why is she wearing little kid sizes? And these colors, these aren't her clothes. These are hand-me-downs your other daughter didn't want." Mom's face went red. "How dare you," she spat, like Mrs. Gable had insulted her kitchen decor. "You don't get to talk about my family." But Mrs. Gable didn't back down. She looked at the officers, voice shaking. "Do you see this? Her legs don't even fit on that bed. No proper bedding. No space. Meanwhile the little one's room looks like a catalog." She pointed at the straw box still sitting on the shelf, lid cracked. "And that thing? That's been their excuse for years. Fairness." Mom turned feral. "You think you know everything because you live next door?" She screamed. "You're just jealous. You're bitter. You can't even have a daughter, so you're cursing mine." She lunged at Mrs. Gable like a wild animal. The officers grabbed her fast. Dad tried to pull her back, but his hands were shaking too. He looked like he couldn't decide whether to defend her or finally admit what they'd done. And then the officer, very calm, very tired, said something that cut straight through the chaos. "Ma'am," he said, "step back. Now." Mom kept fighting them anyway, shouting that it wasn't me. That it couldn't be me. That Mrs. Gable had set her up. That someone had stolen her daughter. She said it so many ways, like if she rearranged the sentence enough, reality would feel sorry and change its mind. Dad finally snapped. Not at the officers. At her. "Stop," he rasped, voice cracking. "Just stop." Mom whipped around like she'd never heard him disagree with her before. "You're blaming me?" she shrieked. "You think this is my fault?" Dad's face twisted, like he was trying to cry and couldn't find the muscle for it. "You were home," he said, each word heavy. "You were right here." Mom stared at him like he'd slapped her. And maybe, in some way, he had. The officers led them out. Handcuffs. Flashlights. Voices. My trailer, my whole world, turned into a crime scene overnight. And Bella? Bella didn't understand any of it. She woke up from a nap to find Mom and Dad being escorted out. She ran after them barefoot, crying, holding the straw box like a teddy bear. "You can't take them," she screamed at the cops. "You have to draw. You have to draw a long straw." One of the officers just blinked at her like he didn't know if he was looking at a child or a curse. Mrs. Gable took Bella's hand, gently, and pulled her back. Bella screamed louder. And that's when I felt it. A tiny, ugly part of me. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't pity. It was relief. Not because my parents were suffering. Because for once, Bella wasn't winning. I didn't even get to sit with that feeling. Because the cat jumped up on the counter beside me like it belonged there. Only this time, it wasn't solid. Its paws didn't make sound. Its fur looked like smoke and moonlight. It turned its head and looked straight at me. And then, like it was the most normal thing in the world, it spoke. "Your sister hates me," it said, licking one paw. "She beat me for scratching her." My throat tightened. "I'm sorry," I whispered, because apologies were the only language I'd ever been fluent in. The cat snorted. "Don't be. I was old anyway. Grandma used to feed me chicken when your mom wasn't looking. I liked your grandma." My heart lurched. "You knew her?" "Everybody knew her," the cat said, almost smug. "Good people leave a smell. Like warm food." I swallowed hard. "I want to go to her," I said. The cat's eyes narrowed. "You can't," it said simply. I stared at the doorway like I could brute force my way out of the trailer with willpower. "I'm stuck," I whispered. "Looks like it," the cat said. Then it tilted its head, like it was thinking. But maybe not forever. The next couple days blurred. People in uniforms came and went. They took pictures, asked questions, wrote notes. They carried my body out in a way that made the air feel wrong, even though I couldn't touch anything. Mom and Dad got brought back home later, because life is cruel like that. Because it turns out, if nobody can prove you physically did something, you can still walk back into the house where your child stopped breathing. They came in like ghosts. Sat on the couch. Stared at the wall. Not holding hands. Not arguing. Not even speaking. Just empty. Mrs. Gable brought Bella back. Bella came in hungry and irritated, like she'd been forced to miss a playdate. "I want food," she said, pouting. "I want crab legs. And cake." Mom didn't move. Bella stomped her foot. Dad covered his face with both hands. Bella's eyes narrowed, confused, then annoyed, like their sadness was a malfunction. So she did what always worked. She ran upstairs and banged on my door with her little fists. "Harper," she yelled. "Come out and draw. I'm hungry." No answer. She came back down and turned on the performance like a switch. "Mom," she sniffled. "Harper said she's not drawing. She said she doesn't want dinner. And she called me a nasty little." Mom's head lifted. Slow. Like something inside her was waking up. Bella kept going, confident. "She said it. She said I." Mom stood so fast the couch cushion bounced. She grabbed the straw box out of Bella's hands and threw it across the room. It hit the wall and shattered. Plastic cracked. Straw scattered. Mom's face twisted into something I'd never seen before. Not anger. Not contempt. Grief. Raw, ugly grief. "She's gone," Mom choked out, voice breaking. "She's gone and you're still doing this." Bella flinched. "What do you mean gone?" She whispered, suddenly scared. "She's in her room. You said she was just being stubborn." Mom laughed. But it wasn't humor. It was the sound of a mind snapping under the weight of everything it's been pretending isn't true. She started grabbing things, frames, knickknacks, Bella's perfect little room decorations, and flinging them like she could smash her guilt into pieces. "This is my fault," she kept saying. "My fault. My fault." She looked at Bella's closet full of dresses like it was evidence. She looked at my empty corner of the trailer like it was a grave. Dad tried to stop her. She shoved him away. And then she grabbed the family photo off the wall. The one where Bella smiled in the middle, bright and centered, and there was no space left for me. Mom stared at it like she'd never noticed before. Then she hurled it onto the floor until the glass cracked. The cat sat beside me, tail flicking. They regret it said, almost bored. I stared at Mom's shaking shoulders. She's crying, I whispered, shocked. Yeah, the cat said. Too late. The next day, Mom did something that would have been funny if it wasn't so sick. She bought clothes, toys, gifts. She stacked them near where they'd placed me, like I was a Christmas tree she could decorate back into existence. But she bought the wrong things. Pink frilly stuff. Glittery toys. It looked like Bella's wish list. Mrs. Gable took one look and let out a bitter laugh. You don't even know her, she said, voice sharp. Not your own child. Mom didn't fight her this time. She just stood there, eyes hollow. What did she like? Mom whispered. The question hit me like a slap. Because she'd never asked me that when I was alive. Mrs. Gable's face softened for a fraction of a second, pity, maybe. Then it hardened again. She loved that teal color, she said. Like the ocean. And she liked bears. She'd always stared at those travel shows, too. Like she was trying to imagine somewhere else. Mom nodded like she was taking notes for a test she'd already failed. Bella hovered in the doorway, watching all those gifts, watching all that attention, and something dark crawled across her face. I recognized it. It was the same look Mom used to get when I dared to want something. Jealousy. But Bella didn't know how to swallow it. Not after being raised like the world owed her everything. That night, when the trailer was finally quiet, Bella crept in. She was small. Barefoot. Holding something she wasn't supposed to have. A candle. She looked at the piles of gifts like they were an insult. Then she looked at me, at what was left of me, and her lip curled. You're ugly, she whispered, like she was telling a secret. And you smell. Why do they care about you now? She threw the candle. It landed. And the chaos caught fast, because there was too much stuff, too close together, and nobody had been thinking clearly. The smell of smoke hit the hallway. Dad jolted awake. Mom came running. Dad grabbed a bucket, dumped water, fought the flames like he was trying to fight time itself. Mom didn't even hesitate. She rushed in, coughing, dragging me out like her arms could undo years. Bella screamed. Dad grabbed Bella, shaking with rage. What is wrong with you? He roared. What is wrong with you? Bella threw her arms up like she was the victim. It's not fair. She shrieked. You said it was supposed to be fair. You said you loved us both. But you don't. You love her. You love her more. Mom stood there, soaked, shaking, staring at Bella like she was seeing her for the first time. Not a miracle baby. Not a princess. A child she'd ruined. Mom's shoulders sagged like someone had cut the strings. I failed both of you, she whispered. Then, very quietly, like the words tasted poisonous, she said, I can't do this anymore. Bella blinked. What? Mom looked at her, eyes red and empty. I can't be your mother, she said. Not the way you need. Not the way she needed. Bella started to cry again, automatic. Dad pulled Bella close, protective, scared. Mom didn't reach for her. She didn't even look at her. She walked past us like Bella was air. And that was the first time Bella ever lost something she couldn't cry her way back into. After that, Mom did one last thing for me that felt almost tender. She bought a coffin. A real one. Big enough. Wide enough. Teal, like the ocean Mrs. Gable had mentioned. She painted a little bear on it with shaking hands, then pressed lace along the edges like she was trying to make it beautiful enough to apologize. I floated above it, stunned. I drifted down and lay inside, just to feel the space. For the first time in my life, my legs could stretch out. It was ridiculous. That my first experience of comfort came after I was gone. I looked at the cat and tried to smile. See? I whispered. I fit. The cat flicked an ear. Not sure I will, it muttered. And then I understood why. Because Mom climbed in too. She lay down beside me like she couldn't stand the distance anymore. She wrapped her arms around the empty space where I should have been warm. She started talking in a broken whisper. You were always so good, she sobbed. You always helped. You always tried. You never made trouble. And I still. Her voice collapsed. And I felt panic slam into me, sudden and violent. Because the way she was talking, it wasn't just regret. It was goodbye. Mom. I screamed, lunging, even though I knew it wouldn't matter. Stop, please. My hands passed through her. My voice hit nothing. The cat jumped onto the edge of the coffin and stared at Mom with narrowed eyes. Oh, for the love of, it hissed. Humans are exhausting. A cold draft slipped through the trailer like someone opened a door to winter. Mom shuddered hard, gasping, like ice had touched the back of her neck. She froze. Then she started crying louder. Harper? She choked. Is that you? Is that you? I froze too. The cat's eyes flicked to me. Told you, it muttered. You're stuck, but you're not powerless. Mom clutched her chest, shaking. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry. I burned the straw box. I swear. No more games. No more luck. I did this. I did this. Her words tumbled out, messy and frantic. She said she'd been afraid. Afraid I'd hate Bella. Afraid I'd be jealous. Afraid I'd hurt her. So she tried to control it. She tried to force fairness like a cage. And she admitted the part that made my whole spirit go cold all over again. She'd bought a box full of short straws on purpose. She'd made sure I could never win. Because if I never won, she never had to face the fact she didn't want me to. I thought I was protecting her, she whispered. I thought I was being a good mother. The cat made a disgusted sound. Yeah, it muttered. Sure. Mom's breathing turned ragged again, like she was falling into that same dangerous place. I looked at the cat, desperate. Help me, I begged. Please. The cat sighed like I was asking it to do taxes. You're so naive, it said. But fine. We can't let her go. What if the afterlife makes us draw straws to get a spot? I didn't even know whether to laugh or cry. The cold draft came again, stronger. Mom jerked, blinking, like something yanked her back from the edge. The next thing I knew, Dad was there, breathless, frantic, calling for help. Sirens. Lights. Chaos. Mom survived. But she didn't go back to being the woman she was before. She moved through the days like someone carrying a heavy punishment on her back. She organized my funeral with a calm that felt like shock. She refused to let Bella come close. Dad begged her to forgive. To try. To keep the family together. Mom just shook her head. I can't raise her, she said softly. I made her this. If you want her, you take her. But don't ask me to pretend. After they buried me, Mom quit her job. She took a small lock of my hair and traveled, like she was trying to show me the places I'd only ever seen on TV. The ocean. A theme park. A city with lights that made the night look alive. She'd stand there with red eyes and whisper, "This is for you." And then she did something I never would have expected. She went public. She sat in front of cameras in some crowded live stream, face bare, voice shaking, and told the whole world what she'd done. No excuses. No luck. No straw box fairy tale. She said love wasn't something you gamble with. That fairness isn't cutting a child down until she fits your guilt. That if you can buy 2 dinners, you buy 2. If you can love 2 children, you do it openly. Not like a game. Not like a punishment. Dad tried to stop her. He said she was humiliating them. She looked at him like he was still lying. If I could do what I did, she said quietly, then I'm not well. And I don't get to hide it. And she checked herself into a place where she could be watched. Where she could sit with her regret in a room that didn't let her run from it. Dad took Bella and moved away. He tried to be better. He told Bella they would never use straws again. That the old rules were wrong. That her sister had been hurt. That they were responsible. Bella nodded like she understood. But the poison was already in her bones. A few years later, Dad worked too much, trying to pay for the mess of everything. One day he collapsed. A nurse called the emergency contact. Mom didn't answer. So they sent Bella, 10 years old, down to the ATM with Dad's card. The nurse gave Bella instructions. Bella held out a new straw box like it was a toy. Only if you draw a long straw, she said brightly. If you draw a short one, the money is mine. I'm buying clothes. The nurse hesitated, confused, but she was tired and stressed and probably thought it was just a weird coping thing. She drew. Short straw. Bella squealed like she'd won a prize. And she ran. Dad didn't get help in time. And when he was gone, Bella didn't even understand what she'd done until the money ran out and nobody came home. Then she went looking for a father who couldn't answer. She became a kid nobody wanted. Because even if you're hungry, even if you're alone, people don't forget the child who treats everything like a game. She wandered. She begged. She dug through trash for food. And one cold night, in an alley behind a grocery store, she found half a chicken leg. She huddled in the dark, trembling, and when a pack of stray dogs crept closer, she pulled out her straw box with shaking hands. Let's draw, she whispered to them like they were people. If you pull a long straw, you can have it. The dogs didn't understand rules. They didn't understand fairness. They only understood hunger. I didn't see the end. Not fully. Some mercy exists, even in stories like mine. All I know is that at some point, something invisible unhooked from my ribs. Like a chain finally snapped. The trailer, my prison, fell away. And for the first time, I could move. I could leave. The cat appeared beside me, padding through the dark like it had been waiting. Took you long enough, it said. Then the air warmed. Not like heat. Like comfort. And there she was. Grandma. Standing at a crossroads that didn't look like a road at all, more like a soft horizon where the sky met something gentle. She smiled the way she used to when she snuck me extra food behind Mom's back. My sweet girl, she said, arms opening. I ran into her like I finally remembered how. The cat trotted up, pretending it didn't care. Grandma laughed and held out something in her hands. Eggs. Plump, warm eggs like little miracles. I got myself a job down here, she said with a wink. So you won't ever be hungry again. My throat tightened. I took one egg, cracked it with my fingers like it was real, like I was real, and I broke it in half. I held the other half out to the cat. It stared at me, offended. Then it took it anyway. See? The cat muttered, chewing. You teach a kid right, love them right. They don't grow up thinking they have to steal to survive. Grandma kissed my hair. I looked back once, at the world I'd left. Not with longing. Not with revenge. Just with a quiet, exhausted understanding. I spent my whole life drawing straws for love. And I finally learned the truth. Love was never supposed to be a prize. It was supposed to be a given. Grandma took my hand. The cat followed, tail high, egg in its mouth like it was carrying treasure. Wait for me, it complained, trotting to catch up. And we walked forward, into the next life, where no one made me earn the right to be held.